When it comes to the things that make our lives better, more convenient and more entertaining, it's size that counts. From mining to construction, from entertainment to maritime, big equipment is what keeps our industries operating, gets product to shelves and keeps our economy working.
But have you ever considered how large equipment gets from place to place?
With enormous growth but underdeveloped infrastructure, it's the developing world that has the biggest challenges when it comes to getting unimaginable scale moved from one destination to another.
I'm here to discover the inner workings of South Africa's transportation industry and follow some of the biggest freight ever to travel this dynamic and exciting country. I'm Rob Bell, and this is Abnormal Load. The country of South Africa has given the world a great deal. Nelson Mandela, Elon Musk, a model for peaceful democracy, the Vuvuzela. All right, it's not all been brilliant. But in the world of industry, what's really put this country on the map won't be found above ground. It's down below.
Coal, formed over millions of years through biological and geological processes. It's the largest source of electricity on Earth and forms 77% of South Africa's energy mix.
But coal isn't just a fuel used to heat our homes and keep our lights on. In South Africa, its use is far wider than that.
Sasol is South Africa's coal-to-fuel innovator. Here they synthesize a whole range of products from coal, including chemicals that help clean our pools or fertilize our soil. Today's Abnormal Load is a consignment of storage tanks that will hold chemicals from Sasol's Midlands plant.
ERD Manufacturing is one of a number of steel and engineering workshops in the Vaal Triangle region that serves the petrochemical industry here.
ERD Manufacturing have been hard at work, and it's D-Day for delivery of their Abnormal Load.
My name is Rian Jansen van Vieren, and I'm responsible for the workshop and the operations.
My name is Rudy Fenster. What I'm doing for a living is busy with a business. It's a light to medium engineering firm.
ERD's main purpose is to fabricate according to our client specifications. Any material regarding steel, metal, pipes, aluminium, we're doing stainless steel.
On site, we fabricate vessels, especially for Sasol and Midlands.
The storage bin is for Sasol. We were asked to fabricate the 2 tanks for them.
The product gets stored in that tank. It's sulfuric acid. What they do is they sell it out to distributors.
The storage tanks have a combined weight of 24 tons. Not the heaviest load, but they stand tall, making them too high to fit under regulation bridges and other obstacles. Added to this, their weight is unevenly distributed, making the onload even more tricky.
Getting them to their destination will require nerves of steel.
The 55-ton Zoomline crane will maneuver into position to be at an optimal distance from both tanks to reduce hang time and ensure maximum accuracy. The hydraulic trailer will then be reversed into position, and using 10-ton lines on each support, the crane will lift the storage tank into position, ensuring it's evenly balanced on the trailer. The task is then repeated for the second trailer, a smaller load, yet no less important or dangerous. It's an excruciating task for both crane operator and rigger, who have to ensure absolute accuracy to prevent damage to the fragile exterior of the tank and the safety of the team around them. ERD are ready to unload their storage tanks, and it's time to call in the cavalry.
My name is Eddie van Heerden. I'm the owner of the transport company moving these 2 vessels.
Myself and Eddie van Heerden come a long way. First, when I was a general manager at ERD Fab, and they are very capable and reliable.
It's nice to be a shackle in a chain because you do your part so that the others can do their parts. It's like a drug. Once you start doing it, you don't want to do something else. When you do normal loads, it's irritating because it's the same thing up and down. When it's an abnormal load, there's different challenges to each and every load, and every time you've got butterflies because it's a new venture, different things that you got to check.
I'm Donald Metre. My job is to lift the material that is difficult to lift by hands. Today I'm going to lift the tanks. I'm going to load 2 tanks on different trucks. It's challenging on our task because anything can happen on the lifting. So we need to barricade first. Then we need to identify the risk and the hazard.
Most important with this load is left to right. You've got to make sure that your center of gravity is on top of one another from the load through to your vehicle. Sometimes you've got to load it straight with your trailer on the right-hand side with a 3 or a 4 meter overhang on the other side to be able to get your balance and your stability in place.
Jan, you'll be my eyes on the opposite side where I can't see. Daryl, you'll also be my eyes while we are loading. Yes. Okay, if there's anything, guys, please shout. As soon as we are having a problem, please just stop immediately and then we'll revise. To be able to load that tanks, we have to have a sufficient crane. We had to obviously look at the weight of the tank, and then from there we monitor the weather.
Because of their colossal size, even in the smallest crosswinds, the tanks become giant sails. And the challenge then becomes in preventing them from swaying about in the wind, which could damage the trailers, the tanks themselves, or worse still, cause serious injury to the workers. Scientifically speaking, this is about preventing the build-up of momentum. So, if I take this small toy truck here, run it along this surface at about 5 kilometers an hour, it's very easy for my body to stop that. That's because it's light, it didn't build up much momentum. Scale that up to the real thing. If I tried to stop a life-size truck, even at just 5 kilometers an hour, I'd be toast. So even if the tanks start to sway at a low speed, because of their giant mass, they'll build up a huge momentum, making them difficult to control.
The wind is very a risk when it comes to the lifting. When you lift something, then because of the wind, it's pushing the load of the crane, and also it can be danger to the crane. The crane can fall because of the wind.
Right, everybody in position. The wind at first this morning when we just started was 14 knots. And as soon as you go over 30, you're going into a danger zone. Donald, wait. Donald, wait.
That's right. Put it back down and check what's off.
The wind has picked up to a 32-knot gust. The crane operator isn't happy and sets the load down again. The team really needs a calm patch. Any deviation could see the load topple over when it's on the road.
You never know what's going to happen. By a small mistake, can really have damage. Donald, hold on. Just keep it right there. You can lose a life.
In Sasselberg, the wind has picked up again. Lifting the storage tanks is starting to look unlikely. This has a massive impact on the schedule, which has to follow a precise series of milestones.
It's a big challenge. You've got to work with municipal escorts to get them to escort you safely through the road because it's an abnormal route. And then you've got to get another guy which is accredited with the Department of Transport for the application of the permit. It took us 2.5 weeks to get the permits issued.
If the team can't load the tanks, it will mean even longer delays, as the correct permits will have to be re-registered. And it could be weeks until this all lines up again. And time is money.
If the transport guys is late, the permit will be expired. Everything will just fall apart. Luckily, the wind was down to 24. then we just made the lift. Right, on your call, on your call, on your call.
With the wind down to safe levels, the team attempt the lift again. It's a painstaking process as Donald monitors the movements inch by inch.
Right, Daniel and Daryl, just keep it like that, keep it steady.
The load comes down, perfectly balanced. The team breathes a sigh of relief, but they're still only halfway through, and the wind could pick up again at any moment. With the experience of the first tank behind them, the team moved quickly onto the second.
We have to communicate between the riggers and the crane operator and those who are assisting the rigger and crane operator. We have signs that direct what we have to do on that time.
In the center, Donald, in the center, please.
You legally be nervous up until you see everything is right, because you cannot know what will happen, even if you say this thing is safe.
Right, Donald. Right, I think we are fine. I think we are fine.
Check the position in that side.
Right, Donald, put it down and hook off. Right, well done, guys. Donald, come in.
Donald has the tank on the low bed trailer and perfectly balanced. For the rigging team, the pressure is off.
I'm glad that we could get it first time right, and yes, we are delivering tomorrow.
It's now down to Eddie and his team to ensure the safe delivery of the storage tanks.
Hi, my name is Ben. I'm a truck driver at Van Heerden's Transport, driving abnormal vehicles. I've been driving for 7 years now. To transport the abnormal loads, every load is different. The traffic, the routes that you take, it's not always the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Now, these two specific loads is abnormal because of the width. Anything over 2.6 on width is abnormal, and everything over 4.3 loaded height is also abnormal.
The convoy's route covers little more than 7 kilometers, but presents numerous obstacles. Accompanied by a police escort, the loads will proceed to Paardeberg Road, where they face the first of these obstacles. This is a sharp left turn across traffic, where the driver must make absolutely certain of the width of their load and prevent it from snagging any signage. The load then proceeds to Jan Haak Avenue, where it faces 2 sets of low-hanging power lines. From there, the load will need to make a sharp left turn onto open veld through a narrow gate before making its way to its final destination at the refinery. It's a 2-hour journey with a host of challenges for drivers Ben, Andries, and lead driver Eddie.
With the tanks loaded, the route planned, and the necessary permissions and assistance all lined up, the trucks are positioned in place, ready for the morning when they'll depart.
It should be all systems go for the Van Heerden's team, but Eddie starts the day with bad news, and a frantic change of plan is required.
Ben, as we explained this morning, the problem that we had with the accident on the R59 last night at more or less 7 o'clock, we were told that no power lines were going to be cut off for us to be able to move underneath these lines. Now, as you can see, the first line that we have to go underneath is 6.75. We went with the chief of Eskom this morning and we rerouted to be able to go underneath the line that they cannot cut because of the other line that's been damaged last night with the accident.
The route now proceeds as per the original plan, but will require the trucks to go off-road to fit under the raised section of pylons. This will bring added complications for the drivers, as their suspended trailers might not have enough clearance on the rough terrain. And of course, there's the electrifying threat of the live wires above them. Driver Ben and team leader Eddie are ready to get going. Their first obstacle is the left turn into the busy Paardeberg Road. The convoy departs with traffic police riding ahead to stop the flow of traffic.
The most important factor that we got to take in consideration is the safety of road users.
It's quite stressful to have all the vehicles around you.
And each and every road user wants to get to his destination as soon as possible, so you're in his way.
Normally when I get out from the start, I start sweating. There's a point on the left-hand side, a nozzle that's sticking out. And around corners, bends, the pavements and the stop signs and everything that you need to be constantly keep a lookout. Every 2 seconds, I'll keep a watch out on that mirror for that pipe.
Ben has timed his approach perfectly, and the load is away through the 90-degree turn. Now it's the second truck's turn. The second truck proceeds smoothly too.
It's a great relief to be around that T-junction there. Everything is safe and that you haven't touched or damaged or scratched anything.
The storage tank loads face a unique conundrum ahead. The slower they go, the safer they'll be. But as the day wears on, the temperature increases and the power lines begin to sag. They need at least a 1 metre clearance to ensure that the charge doesn't jump from the lines to the truck below. This load, made out of steel, is hardly insulated against the 80,000 volts that run through these lines. For Ben and his team, this could be a life or death obstacle.
The drivers will have to travel off-road to fit their tall loads under the highest elevation possible, a point right underneath the pylon. But it's not just the overhead wires that are a concern for the team. The specialty trailers, ordered long before the improvised route of today, may be too low to travel over this rocky Highveld scrub.
These drivers are literally caught between a rock and a hard place.
When I'm approaching power lines, I start worrying.
When we get to the first power lines, they confirm to their people at the substations. At the same time, we have a vehicle driving in front of the load, which has got a stick, which is 100 to 150 millimeters higher than the load to secure. So once we get to the line, we make 100% sure what the height of the line is. Otherwise, you get the current that jumps through onto your truck, and it can blow your tires and it can kill your drivers.
Although the height clearance looks good, any distance shorter than a metre could see the charge jump from line to tank. Effectively, a 12-ton mega conductor.
Ben and the first load is safely through, but it's the second load with an increased height that has the lower trailer. Will it have enough ground clearance to avoid getting stuck?
This is quite nerve-wracking. My mind is still telling me those power lines are still alive. And anything can happen.
Andries has done it. While overcoming the obstacle, the pressure's not over for the team. The final test will be a 90-degree turn onto a dirt road and on to the final destination.
The team are heading through no man's land in order to access the Midlands back gate. The front entrance won't work. With its myriad of pipes and containers, the 6-metre-high tanks just won't fit. So it's back gate or bust.
The two gates, the 6.5 and our loads are 6.1. So we've got to negotiate those loads very carefully.
Approaching the gate, I've already starting measuring my mirrors to see that the load will go through.
Ben's first attempt at the turn comes to a halt. The angle is too acute to make it through the gate. You'll have to back up to allow a straight path through the perilously tiny opening, navigating the traffic on this busy private road.
Even if you have to crawl through it, make sure that the clearance on both sides is correct.
The tanks squeak through. With an understanding of the angles required to get through the gate, second driver Andries nails his approach first time. It's all smiles for the Van Heerden's team as they make their way towards their final destination, the Sasol Midlands plant.
It's like going to ask your parents to get married and they said yes, and it's a very relief after you deliver the float.
It's like a little boy that gets a packet of sweets or an ice cream on a Sunday afternoon after he had his lunch. It's nice to be able to give a successful service to a customer that needs it.
Successful deliveries like this one keep the engines of industry turning. And for a country like South Africa, those industries tend to be resource intensive, like mining, manufacturing and chemical processing. But not all of South Africa's natural resources have to be dug out of the ground.
Cape Town has one of the most scenic coastlines in the world. Its world-class beaches bring in much-needed tourism dollars. But what lies underneath these waves is just as valuable.
This is part of an exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, that extends up to 370 kilometres offshore. These sea zones give a country special rights regarding the exploration and use of marine resources like fisheries or natural gas reserves. And to make use of and protect these resources, a country needs vessels, big ones.
My name is Brent Sickle, and I'm the production manager for Damen Shipyards Cape Town.
Damon has already built ships for the South African Navy and now exports across the continent.
We've got the 5009 vessel, it's known as the FCS, the Fast Cruise Supply Vessel. It's used for the transport of personnel and cargo to offshore platforms as well as oil rigs.
This 59-metre long, 9-metre wide ship is also used as a security patrol vessel. Being fuel efficient and easy to maintain with low operating costs, these ships are ideal for patrolling EEZ waters.
Well, it takes between 12 and 16 months to manufacture vessels such as this. What is special about the way we do it is not only the quality of our workmanship, but also the technology and study that has actually gone into the design of it. So what makes it special is that she has 4 engines, as well as 4 propellers. She has a speed of about 30 knots, as well as quite a big seating space for personnel when transporting.
The vessel can only be lowered into the water by a specialised platform known as a synchro lift, situated at Cape Town Harbour's dry dock over 4 kilometres away. Getting it to the dry dock means an overland journey that all starts with getting the vessel loaded up and out of this shed. Weighing in at 313 tons, this abnormal load is going to be a mammoth task. With its slender hull and extreme length, balancing this on the trailer without doing damage to the ship's body will be a precise and delicate engineering skill. The responsibility for the design falls on the shoulders of this man.
I'm Christian Ituze, project engineer at LE Heavy Lift. Basically, it entails finding the most feasible solution for the client in terms of logistics, the route survey, what's physically possible to sort of navigate this route, and economically, what sort of solution can we provide them that sort of beats our competitors.
The Damon and ALE rigging teams have 2 days to coordinate this move. It's a distance of only 4 kilometers to their delivery point at the dry dock, but will require hours of effort.
A lot of planning. I mean, we've done this on numerous occasions, but each case is special. Even though we've moved about 4 of these FCS vessels, there's still quite a lot of considerations to take in. There's different conditions. Things change. The wind is quite a big factor. Availability of equipment. It doesn't always mean that we'll have the same equipment available to do the job. So it's always trying to balance everything before the job starts.
And it's up to the ALE heavy lift rigging team to carry out Christian's ambitious plan.
My name is Luke Stefan, and I'm the rigging supervisor for ALE Heavy Lift. It involves overseeing large lifts, large installations, and moves like this.
My name is Marco Khan. I'm a transport supervisor, overseeing loading, lashing, and sometimes operating.
The rigging team now face the challenging task of getting the 313-ton patrol vessel safely secured onto the trailer. First, a gantry crane moves 8 hydraulic jacks into position to lift the load off its supports to allow the trailer access. The boat's uneven distribution of weight means this is a delicate balancing act. The jack is then raised in intervals of 200 millimeters to allow the team to pack wooden blocks underneath the tracks for stability and support. It's slow and painstaking work that can take several hours, but vitally important for the safe movement of the load. The rigging team are ready to start jacking up the vessel. A gantry crane is used to move these 50-ton hydraulic jacks into place. While it gets this machinery from place to place quickly, it means the team has to keep alert with heavy machinery moving through the air. The big jacks are lowered into place, and now the team take it in turns to block and tackle or ratchet the jacks into their final, precise position.
I'm Jeremy White. I'm quality controller at Damon Shipyard, Cape Town. This moment in time, what they're doing is they're lifting these cradles here. They've made sure that it's secured. They will be jacking it up to a certain height so that their trailer can come underneath and then go down and secure it on there.
Once the jacks are in position, timber beams are used to offer cushioning for the load. They're supple, yet strong enough to absorb the weight of 300 tons, pushing down on the 4 jacks. But their positioning is critical. Any beam out of place could result in the load becoming unbalanced and potentially toppling over.
With all 4 jacks placed and supported, Luke raises the load. But the timber beams on one jack are out of place. The load has to come down back onto the cradles, and the timber has to be repositioned.
Depending on the size of the jack, the 60-ton jacks are quite fast on the tractor and extend, but the 500-ton jacks are a lot slower. I wouldn't say it was very stressed, but a lot of concentration. You know, you have to watch all 6 jacks all the time.
This time, Luke is happy. He raises the jacks and the balance holds. Next step for the ALE team is to bring in the trailer. But first, it's time for an inspection. And the reason is quite obvious.
You've got a water line. You'll see the differences in the colors of the vessel. The one color is what goes into the water, basically, and you've got a water line. So everything that goes below water, you cannot see anymore. So therefore, it's very important that those topics that go underwater are 100% correct. Once the vessel goes into the water, you cannot rectify it again unless you take it out the water. So it's very important to make sure that everything is as it should be before it goes to the water.
It's time for Jeremy's pre-launch inspection, making sure all valves are shut and docking plugs are in. Meanwhile, Mark prepares to bring in his self-propelled trailer. This piece of machinery is going to transport the patrol vessel from shipyard to dry dock.
It's the same as you driving, but you know that you don't have a steering wheel, you just have a remote.
If the payload was not positioned correctly on the trailer, that would mean that each axle is deviating from what we planned. If the payload had been a bit too forward, the wheels start spinning, the payload does not move. If they're too rear, you overload that group. So you need to get that just right. Place it in a good sweet spot.
With the onload complete, the crew head out to grab a few hours precious sleep before the big move. It's going to be a testing morning.
The main obstacles that we'll have tomorrow is that moving the vessel out of the shipyard. First, getting her out of the shipyard, getting her onto the road, stopping the traffic. That can sometimes be a challenge, but luckily we have the traffic department supporting us there. And then once we actually get to the V&A waterfront, removing some of the traffic lights and bollards, if there are any that are in our way, and getting it into one of the lanes at the center lift. That can sometimes be a challenge.
It's 5 a.m. and the team are doing their final checks. There's no wind and no rain in sight. It's a good omen, but Jeremy's leaving nothing to chance. This load is going to be anything but easy.
So for this payload, the center of gravity of the boat's 4.6 meters above the ground. It weighs 304 tons, but each cradle that it sits on, that's about 4 tons. The trailer itself weighs in the region of 70 tons, so you get the whole combined gross combination mass, and basically we take that into account designing the solution. Challenge is obviously the length. You'll notice that the payload extends beyond the dimensions of the trailer. And the trailer can only turn a limited amount of degrees. So you look at coming out of that shed. Will you sort of have enough turn before you start hitting the embankments or pavements? When you go over any islands or pedestrian crossings, do you have enough stroke to keep sort of the payload balanced? Because once it goes beyond the center of the trailer, you're sort of out of a stability criteria that we use. So stuff like that. Can we make the turns? Do we have enough stroke? And is the road able to accommodate the amount of load introduction we're imposing it during the whole transport?
You can see it's going great on the stresses of things. The hard things here is just really making sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to do when they must do it.
The most pressured part of the route for the tugboat rigging team is leaving the safety of the Damen shipyard. They need to carefully maneuver the 313-ton load down a small step and then execute a sharp right turn onto Duncan Road. Accompanied by traffic escorts, the load will then travel on the remote-controlled trailer down Duncan Road. The next obstacle is construction work at a traffic intersection belonging to the Ports Authority, where traffic lights and bollards need to be removed. The distance to the dry dock is only 4 kilometers, but our heavy load, traveling at walking speed, will only be allowed to cross the busy intersection if they arrive before 7 a.m.
We're waiting for the power to be disconnected, and then we're going to start moving out.
The traffic escorts are ready and waiting, and as strange as it might sound, it's time to get this ship on the road. But almost immediately, the team faced their first obstacle, getting over the step and then a sharp right turn into the road.
And with a length of 59 meters, they have to be very careful not to scrape the boat against the entrance of the shed.
Okay, transport's ready to go. Let's get the show on the road, boys. Back her up. Luke, remember those tracks? Yes, sir.
So the nose is going to go over the railway tracks. It's almost on 60 meters long, the vessel. So it's going to be very tight. We might have to do maybe 3 turns. Space is going to be pretty tight. So we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled more, especially going around corners and all of that. And a lot slower, maybe.
Here we go. Let's keep it peeled.
The load inches out of the shed. Mark has to keep right to avoid the railway tracks, but without making contact with the shed doors on his left.
What's your 20 on those doors?
The first attempt halts. The load won't make it out of the shed doors at this angle. They back it up.
Let's keep it going back. Let's keep it going back. What's your 20 on those doors? I need a 20 on that curve. I don't want to bottom out here. Mark, let's do that again.
Mark launches a second attempt.
What's your line, Mark? What's your line? Looking good. And let's hop there. Still not, Mark. Still not. One more attempt.
Again, the angle is too acute. This is costing the team valuable time. They have to reach the intersection before 7 a.m.
Okay, let's one more. We can do this, boys.
The only bad part about it is coming out of the workshop turning. It's all regarding with communication. There's not good communication, you're not sure what can happen.
Looking good, Mark.
The third attempt works. The team are free to move on to reach their destination.
I always make double sure about that. It's better to take 5 minutes for checking than taking 5 years for explaining.
Transport that we're headed onto Duncan Road. We're looking good for destination. Keep an eye out for obstruction. Copy that.
Cape Town's roads are at a standstill while many stop to look. It's not every day you see a boat moving on wheels, and the traffic cops have their hands full. Luckily, the wind stays away and the balance is maintained.
Moving at walking pace, the vessel has to reach the traffic intersection by 7 a.m. Any later, and it'll have to wait several hours for traffic to die down. But that could mean losing its place in the parking bays at the dry dock.
My biggest thought would be ensuring that the boat arrives at the sinker lift safely, 1. And then 2, actually, the spectatorship that the boat produces. Having people actually see vessels of this magnitude that has been produced by Darman out on the road. That's quite a spectacular moment.
The ship makes slow but steady progress. Ahead, it has to get through a portion of private property that's under construction. It's going to be a tight squeeze through these gates and onto the intersection on the other side. Mark needs all the concentration he can summon. There's very little clearance for this enormous load to pilot through, and he's got to make it through before 7 a.m. when the traffic volume starts to build up.
Give me a 20 on the nose. You good? You good? Keep going. I need eyes on the starboard deck. Starboard deck. Slow your speed. Slow your speed. I've got little room here.
The vessel squeaks through. Next up, the final challenge, getting through an intersection. To get to this point has taken months of planning.
things change. Just to give you an example, the previous FCS had a whole roundabout as you're approaching this, the synchro lift. That changed. So even though we had the same transport combination, but the route survey needed to be redone just to accommodate for these changes and see if the concept we provided is still feasible for the intended route.
Thanks to significant development in this harbour area, what used to be a dilapidated traffic circle is now an intersection with traffic lights. The patrol boat will need to pilot through on the diagonal to the dry dock entrance from the construction site opposite. And the team will need to ensure that traffic is brought to an absolute standstill while this happens. But the biggest concern is the traffic lights themselves. The vessel is so big, the roads agency will need to temporarily remove them to allow the load to pass through.
The team reach the intersection and discover that the traffic lights haven't been removed. They have to get through to the dry dock before 7 a.m. and are running out of time. If the space isn't cleared, they may be stuck on the wrong side of the road for hours. A team get to work to remove the traffic lights. They're on borrowed time as the traffic starts to build up behind them.
I don't know how long it's going to take. Yeah, this is the problem. We're just waiting on those traffic lights. ETA? 5 minutes. In the meantime, let's make sure that gate at the dry dock is open. Just jump on it.
The team get the police go-ahead to cross the road. It's now a whole other challenge for Mark to get the patrol vessel into the dry dock.
Keep it straight. Keep it straight there.
With the traffic lights removed, the patrol vessel can proceed smoothly. But with backed up traffic and very little margin for error, it's no easy passage for Mark and the team.
What's that nose? I've got no eyes on that nose. Nose is fine, over. My starboard side? Looking good, over. Keep it coming, keep it coming. What's your line, Mark? Your bearing? Eyes on starboard. How am I doing there? Got space, over. What's your port side? What's your port side?
But his experience pays off, and the patrol vessel is through the last of its obstacles and into the dry dock.
Through, Mark. You're through. Nice job.
So what's going to happen now, we'll align it to the center line of these bogies. We'll jack it up to remove our trailer. Then these bogies will slide underneath the payload. We'll load it onto the cradles and then wish it off. Then they'll start the whole process of commissioning it and launching it down.
Now that the team have reached their destination, it's time to ready the ship for launch. The ALE team will now jack down the vessel onto supports, remove the self-propelled trailer, and then jack the vessel onto movable supports called bogies. These bogies will then mount onto a transfer carriage, and the entire load will be pushed by a tractor onto a motorized synchrolift platform to eventually be lowered into the water.
Quite tired at this point for the team and I, having worked some late nights and early mornings getting boats prepared and launched. But at the end of the day, really happy that we launched the boats without any incidents, and it also frees up the space within the yard now for future projects. So very happy.
Our oceans need safekeeping for obvious reasons, and this patrol vessel is key to that role. It will protect our waters from overfishing and get people from place to place, ensuring our seas remain sustainable, both environmentally and economically.
It's easy to marvel at the size of these loads, but the engineering challenges at the heart of their transportation are just as impressive.
Overcoming all these challenges takes dedication and commitment from designers, engineers and welders, from surveyors, project managers and riggers, from the traffic officers and from the drivers. These are the men and women who pull out all the stops to ensure our lives are better. This is the world of abnormal load.